Welcome, fight fans. Colin Sherwood alongside the undefeated in the UFC, Billy Quarantillo. We're here talking about UFC 254, some odds, some matchups. Billy, first of all, thanks for doing this and welcome. Thanks for being a part of what we're trying to do here.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me.
So at 145, you are 15-2 career. There are no fights at 145 on this card, so we will not be talking about anybody who could potentially be an opponent for you, at least in the immediate future. Which I hope gives you a chance to really say what you think and talk about the fights as you would see them as a fan. Just talking to you before we get on here, you're clearly a huge fan of the sport. But you're 4-0 so far in the UFC if you count your Dana White Contender Series victory. You've won 8 in a row. It seems like things are tracking really, really well for you. I've seen you fight. You certainly have an exciting style. You get out there. You've won with a KO and a submission already. Talk about what it's been like, this sort of just huge rush up over the last, I guess, a little bit over a year, and your involvement with the UFC as they brought you on as part of the roster.
Yeah, it's just been a dream come true. I moved to Tampa from Buffalo in 2010. And, since day one, my main goal, my main focus was to be in the UFC and then, at this point now to be a world champion. So it took me a long time, obviously, to hone my skills. I was kind of a late starter, but I basically just took fight after fight after fight. And finally, it really started to pay off. And this last year and a half, 2 years has really been a dream come true. Being able to be successful in the UFC, to kind of proving myself that what I knew I was capable of, and that was to have a successful run in the UFC. And now the big goal is to chase down that world championship. And, I think we're a few fights out still, but it's very motivating to be where I'm at now. And I think this is only the beginning, and you're going to see a lot more of me.
You can see my Tampa Bay Lightning hat. This is the city of champions right now. The Rays head to the World Series tomorrow night. The Bucks got a huge win yesterday over the Packers. Could you be that next guy, that next Tampa champion? Because right now, everything that's coming out of the city right now seems to be coming up roses. It seems like you're on the way.
Yeah, I think it's something in the water, that downtown, Hillsborough River. It's an amazing time. And someone who, I grew up in Buffalo and I'm still a diehard Bills fans and I still root for the Sabres. It's amazing to be around so much success in sports, winning the Stanley Cup, playing in the World Series. It just seems like they're always, the sports teams here are usually successful. It's really fun to watch and to be a part of that. And I would love to be it. Every fight you see me talking about after I talk about Buffalo and I talk about Tampa, I got so much appreciation for all the people of Tampa and the people of Buffalo. So I got to always shout out both sides, and Tampa's my home now. So I love it here. And I would love to bring home another championship to an already successful city.
Yeah, and I'm guessing you're going to be enjoying the fact that you're living in Tampa over Buffalo for the next, about 6 months, because it's about to start turning there where you really don't want to be there as much. Let's get into it. So you're looking at your next opponent. No official matchup yet, but who do you think it might be? Who you got in mind for your next step?
Yeah, no, nothing official yet. We still got to talk to Dana White and the matchmakers. I've had 3, fight nights in a row. The last three cards I've been on, the last 2 cards I've been on the main card. Going 3-0 and 4-0 overall in the UFC. I think the next fight, the most important thing for me is just to be on a big card. I look at this weekend's pay-per-view, and I'm like, man, they get so much more attention, like the big pay-per-views, the big cards, which I think when I first got in the UFC, I think I had to kind of earn that, earn your chance to fight for the pay-per-view spot, on the big cards. I think now it's a great opportunity for me to kind of be on that, the big stage. And I think Gavin Tucker, another Canadian, I just fought a Canadian. I think Gavin Tucker is the next matchup to make. He's 3-1 in the UFC. He trains in Canada. He trains under Firas Zahabi, who is George St. Pierre's old coach, one of the best coaches in the world. We were supposed to fight when I was 1-0 in the UFC during, in April. And since then, I've won my last 2. He's won another one. And now we're both free. So he wanted to fight. I definitely still want to fight. And I think that fight on a big pay-per-view card, even to start off a main card or be on the prelims of a huge card. I think that's kind of like what I'm expecting. And I think the winner of that, which I obviously think it's going to be me, the winner of that card, I think would be fighting for the top 15 spot next, fighting a ranked opponent, being 4-0 in the UFC. I think that would deserve that.
Absolutely. Let's get into the fights. Right now, we're going to pick a few out that you might know something a little bit about, have a little bit of a tie to. It's a big card, but we don't want to keep you here all day. Liana Jojua takes on Miranda Maverick in the women's fight. You actually know one of these fighters. What can you tell me about what you see and the matchup?
Yeah, so when I was just looking over this card last night and earlier this week, I noticed Miranda Maverick on there. Super nice girl. I got a chance to meet her. She came down to Tampa and trained with us for a few days. I didn't get a ton of. I just moved around with her a little bit. I didn't really see a lot from her. But then I've since then I've looked up her stats, and I remember talking to her, and she almost got signed to the UFC like a couple of years ago because she was that highly touted. But she wanted to make sure that she had the experience. And I'm seeing her stats, and I'm seeing it against her opponent, and she's a huge underdog in this fight. Or that's what that's what they were saying. So I like her in this fight. Actually, I'm actually seeing now she's actually a bigger favorite now than she was before. It looks like she's a favorite now. I still like her in that matchup. She's beaten Pearl Gonzalez. She's beaten some big names in Invicta. And if you are getting her as a big favorite, I would probably mix her in with a parlay. But I like her in that matchup. I think she was ready for the UFC probably last year, and she's only gotten better. So I think she's going to take that one in the women's division.
If you're already talking about parlays, you clearly know how to wager on these fights. That seems to be what a lot of people are doing, is taking a bunch of chalk, grouping it all together, and then if you can get through 1, 2, 3, you can actually get into that plus money and still pick up some cash. So yeah, absolutely. We will. And when you get in the ring with, she fights at 105. You're a 145 pound guy. Do you have to like hold back a little bit when you're like rolling around on the mat? Like, do you have to be like, okay, I really don't want to hurt somebody here. I get this huge, I'm a guy and I got a 40-pound advantage, if not more.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny. Most girls, they don't want you to take it light on them. They're all really tough. And so like, no girl likes it when guys are like, oh yeah, like kind of going light with you. So I give them like, kind of fast and light movement. And then there's some girls, I'll prop one of my friends, Erin Hart, who is she fights at 135, which is only 10 pounds less than me. But she's been doing jiu-jitsu forever. So with girls like that, she'll come out and try to kill you. So like with her, it's like part going hard and like part defending myself because I don't want her to knock my head off.
That's awesome. We'll go to the Ankalaev Cutelaba fight. Ankalaev minus 278 right now at DraftKings Sportsbook. What do you see out of that one in what should be? It's an early card fight, but I think it's pretty exciting for a lot of the fans.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans, I know, so I follow a lot of like the MMA Twitter accounts, and a lot of people are so excited for this fight. If you remember, they've been matched up. I think this is like their third or fourth time being matched up. They fought once, and Ian went out, and they were both or Ian. They came out and they were having a great fight, and he got hit a few times, and he was kind of acting like he was really hurt. He was kind of like doing one of these, like moving around. And he was basically playing possum. He was basically like acting like he was hurt, and the ref.
And they stopped the fight. Yeah.
So I think he learned his lesson from that. And I like him in this one. I keep flipping. He's it looks like he's, like you said, I think he's a slight underdog. I like his attitude. I like how he comes out super aggressive. Magnev is a super good fighter too. I know I mess these names up. He's a very talented fighter, and he just looked good in his last fight. But I'm going to go with the underdog, Ian, in this one. He's a slight underdog, but I like him in this one because I just think like that little bit of time off, I think he was going to do well in the first time they fought, but we really didn't get a chance to see it yet. So I'm rooting for him, and I think he's going to get it done.
We'll go from 205 to the guys who probably have a little bit easier weight cuts than you do.
Mhm.
Stefan Struve, Tuivasa, at heavyweight, which is, that range between 205 and 265. You can see guys coming at 235, 240, and then you see guys who actually have to cut down to get to 266 for that fight, in that range. What do you see in that one? And I think you said you also worked with one of these other guys before as well, too.
Yeah. The Stefan Struve fight, I was interested in that one. I've never I've met Stefan on just one occasion, but I've been watching him forever. I met him at my UFC debut. I remember walking into the workout room, and he was probably 20 yards away from me, and like the other, like the complete back, like the hotel room, and he was throwing kicks, and the kicks looked like they were like right next to me. He's so long. He's just like the longest, tallest person. He actually is coached and I believe managed by Lex McMahon, who I've known. He's a Florida guy. He runs Titan Promotion, so I've known him for a very long time. So I'm going to go with Stefan Struve on this one. A lot of these picks, you're seeing similarities with me kind of knowing them or me knowing a little bit about them, and I always like rooting for the people that I'm cool with, especially if it's a close fight. He's a very slight favorite on this one. I like that size advantage, and I think he gets it done in this fight too.
Yeah, Ankalaev at 278, Cutelaba at 215, and then Struve is a minus 125 favorite, with Tuivasa at plus 100. So basically a coin flip with the VIG. So that should be a good one. We'll keep it at 265 here as well. The Volkov and Harris, Alexander Volkov, and Walt Harris. Volkov comes in at minus 162. This is a main card fight. Harris comes in at plus 130. Which are either of these guys going to be able to get in the mix for a possible title shot, or at least get into that like top 5 range if they can get a win here?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I definitely think so too, especially with Daniel Cormier retiring. That basically just bumps everyone up one more position. In this fight, just like the last fight, these heavyweights are so tough. So I hope people don't watch this and crucify me after, because the heavyweights, it's a one punch deal. Fighting's a very risky sport anyway. But when you're talking about guys with just a one punch vicious power, your guy can get knocked out pretty easily. So they're all risky fights. I think I'm going to go with Volkov on this one. He's a little bit longer. He's beaten some high level guys. He knocked out Verdum back in the day. Harris is not as experienced against higher level guys. I think he's coming off a loss to Alistair Overeem. I like both guys. I like Walt Harris. But I think Volkov, with his experience, I think Volkov gets it done. I'd probably go with him. Again, risky heavyweight fights, in my opinion, are the riskiest to pick. That's why a lot of them are like, especially at that high level, a lot of the odds are a lot closer, because either one of these guys can knock each other's lights out. I'm going to go with Volkov on experience. But I'm expecting this one and that last one both to be very interesting fights.
So when you're fighting, do you feel like, if you get in there with anybody, I mean, nobody, even on fight day, they're not going to weigh like more than 155, 160 when you're in there with them. Do you feel like it's a little bit safer at your level, because the guy can't just come in and like absolutely knock your block off, as if you guys were both, 100 pounds heavier? Those fights, you're moving slower if you're 100 pounds heavier. And then if you catch one, I mean, there just might be so much behind you. You could be out for months, years. Do you feel like it's a little bit safer, and there's a little less long-term body injury at your level?
Yeah, I do. Even at this level, at 145, I've gone against, the last few guys I fought. The last 2 guys have, they still throw pretty hard, even in, at the UFC level. Pretty much everyone throws pretty hard at this. And I would say, like what you mentioned about the weight cuttings, even though we weigh 145, I'm not the biggest 45er, and I've still gotten, I still get back up to like, 163, 164. So, wow. and that's average, so I know guys who put way more. Like I know, like 2 fights ago when I fought the Alpha Ginger, all we did was cut to 150. And for that one, I maybe got up to 162 or like 161 because I didn't cut as much. So I didn't balloon back up as much. And I know he had at least 10, 15 pounds and he hit very hard. So I know some guys hit hard. But absolutely. I think the bigger guys can take a better punch because they're just bigger. They're a little thicker. Their jaws are thicker. Their bodies are thicker. But yeah, they're the long-term effect. And most heavyweight fights, they're either going to be a knockout within the first 2 or 3 minutes, or it's usually going to be like a long dragged out dog fight. But yeah, I see some of these knockouts and I'm like, thank God that's not me. They don't have to cut weight, but they're also getting viciously knocked out.
So right now you're in training. You don't have a fight scheduled yet, but of course you're still working out every day. What are you walking around at right now?
So right now I'm probably about 170, probably close to 170. I'm probably like 160. Yeah. 160, anywhere from like 167 to 170. I never really get above 170. I know guys, I trained with another featherweight around here. He would get up to 180, 185 in his downtime. And then he basically just cut it down. So, not everyone, even though we all weigh the same on fight night, everyone's different shapes and different body types. I personally don't like cutting a ton of weight because you see it sometimes where, guys are huge and they come out but they cut all that weight and they put it back on. And so then they get gassed out after 5 minutes because their body's just trying to keep up with that. So I don't like cutting a ton of weight, but I definitely realize that if you don't cut any weight, you're going to be at a huge size disadvantage.
When do you start, like, how far out from a fight you're like, okay, more vegetables, less pasta? Like, when do you start starting to lean it down? And then like a week before the fight, where are you at?
Yeah. So right now I'm assuming that I'm at least 6 weeks to 8 weeks out right now. So I've already started mixing in, healthier foods. I just eat more of them, and then I'll have a cheat meal, maybe on like a Friday or Saturday night, I'll have a cheat meal. But besides that, it's mostly meal prep, like healthy food. Within the next month, I'll slowly get down to about 162. So I'll lose like 5 or 6 pounds, slowly get down to about 162. And then I'll walk around at 162 for a good portion of that training camp. And then I'll slowly lose those last couple pounds, get down to like 160, 159. And then I'll go into fight week right around that. And then a lot of that weight will be water weight that you just got to, hit the saunas, hit the hot tub, and lose the rest of that right during fight week, like right the day before the weigh-ins.
Wow. That's just crazy what you guys put yourselves through. I have so much respect for the amount of discipline that it takes to just be able to get through that. We'll get down to the last two here. The co-main and the main event. Robert Whittaker, Jared Cannonier. As a co-main event for a pay-per-view, I don't think you can ask for anything better. This is almost a true coin flip. Whittaker right now is minus 106 at DraftKings. Cannonier is minus 118. Who you got?
Yeah, I got to go with, and I have no personal ties to either of these guys. I'm a huge bumpy knuckles Robert Whittaker fan. So I'm going to go Whittaker with this one. He's a former champion. He looked great against Darren Till. And Cormier, he's good. He's very good. I think he's right in the top there. And if he does get this upset, I think whoever wins this fight should be fighting Adesanya next. But yeah, I'm gonna go Whittaker. He's a former champion. I think the strength of his schedule has been a little bit higher. And Cormier, he's taken some losses, in big fights. He's lost to Jan and or John, the 205 champion. He's lost to Reyes. So I'm gonna go with Whittaker. I think when during these big fights, these big pay-per-views, I think that's when Whittaker's at his best. Obviously he lost to that Adesanya, but he came back and looked great against Darren Till. And I think if he goes out there and gets a big finish, I think him and Israel Adesanya would be a huge next title fight. Even though I'm sure Adesanya wants to fight, he wants to clean out the division. I think if Whittaker wins this one, I think he's done enough winning these next 2 fights to earn himself a title shot again. And I think that would be a huge fight, Whittaker versus Adesanya again, especially since they're both from around the same region. I think that's an interesting fight again, and I would like to see that because I think he looks even sharper than he did the first time they fought.
It should be something else. And then we get to the last one here at lightweight. Maybe making his case for the GOAT in Khabib against Justin Gaethje, 28-0 versus 22-2. Khabib said something about maybe wanting to retire at 30-0. Just floating some things out there. He tends to do that. He's not afraid of social media and sparking it up in the fight game himself. I would say that maybe Cormier's what ended up being his last fight might have been the fight of the year, or at least the one that the fans were looking forward to the most. If it's 1 and 1A with this one though. This is going to be a huge pay-per-view. It's going to do massive numbers, especially now that we don't have other competing sports. There's no NBA, there's no NHL. I think you're looking at a huge pay-per-view by here. Right now at DraftKings, it is Khabib minus 335 and Gaethje at 260. Who you got?
All right. So yeah, this is a huge fight. I think I think the lightweight division, probably the most stacked division. A lot of people are talking about bantamweight, some people featherweight. Around those, like maybe 170. I think around those weight classes tend to be the most stacked because I think that's where most people just naturally walk around at. So I think lightweight, there's a huge fight. Khabib, obviously his stock has shot through the roof, beating Conor McGregor. That was just a huge fight. Coming off another win versus just Poirier. He's looked pretty invincible. Justin Gaethje, I will pre-frame. I did meet him at my UFC debut in DC. Was super friendly. We actually, myself and Matt Frivola, another UFC fighter, actually got a chance to go in his hotel room because they were making Onyx gloves. So this brand, him and his coach designed, Trevor Whitman, one of the smartest guys in MMA, designed these gloves and all this MMA gear, basically gloves, headgear, shin pads. And they actually went and tested us for them. We felt them out, and he actually sent me the gloves. I just got them last week. I got a post about them because they are just amazing gloves. It looks like an astronaut designed these gloves. They fit perfectly. You don't even have to wear hand wraps. And I've been, throwing bombs at all my teammates. So my teammates have been getting some licks in. So the interesting part to me is Justin Gaethje's defensive wrestling is much better than Conor McGregor's and Dustin Poirier's was. Even though they did the training camp getting ready for the Khabib fight, they weren't able to stop his takedowns at all. Khabib being the dominant wrestler that he is, the odds are what they are for a reason. But this fight is definitely a fun fight to play around with. I've listened to Justin Gaethje talk about this on different podcasts where he was a state champion wrestler and a D1 wrestler for a very long time. And even when he was in college, he wasn't an offensive wrestler. He was a very good defensive wrestler. So he's very good at defending the takedown. So for me, this fight is a very fun card to bet on. I would go with Justin Gaethje being a huge underdog. One, I'm already rooting for him. He's just a badass American. And I do like that his defensive wrestling, like if you've noticed, he was a very, very, very good D1 wrestler. And for him to he hasn't even attempted a shot in the UFC yet, which is just crazy. Like, someone who wrestles their whole life like that, you would think it would mix into his game plan. But I think that he just wants to be an exciting fighter. But I think going into this fight with his coach, Trevor Whitman, also having Kamaru Usman has been in his camp for these last few months, doing his own fighting. He's basically a bigger version of Khabib. It's hard to imagine how Khabib loses. I think if Gaethje can stop a couple takedowns and land some good shots, he might be able to take him out, get the TKO finish. It's going to be an exciting fight. So I think this is a fun one where, it doesn't cost you a lot of money to possibly win big. So I would go with Justin Gaethje on this one for the simple fact that his resume and his stylistic matchup against Khabib is a lot better than how Poirier and Conor matched up with him, because both of those guys are really good strikers, but they're not great defensive wrestlers, So I would take Justin in this one. It's obviously it's risky fight for a reason. It's big odds. You can win big money on it. But like they say, everyone's got to lose eventually. So why not now? Why not against Gaethje? I think Gaethje has a better chance than any of Khabib's opponents coming into the fight. So for that reason, Justin Gaethje, Trevor Whitman, I'm going to go with them getting the win on this one. And I'm heavily rooting for them too, of course, to get that belt.
It would be something. That would be one of the bigger upsets on a big card in a long time. Gaethje, if you haven't seen Gaethje fight, as you said, D1 wrestler, you think, oh, he wants to get in, grapple, ground and pound. He's 22-2 in his career. He's 5-2 in the UFC. He's got 19 knockouts, and all 5 of his wins in the UFC are by KO. So just a crazy spot. This should be something else. It'll be one that will be remembered. That's for sure. Billy, thank you so much for doing this, man. I'd take you to Burns, but right now I don't know if they're completely open at 11 o'clock in the morning. But we really appreciate it, and good luck and congratulations once again on all your success. We'll be rooting for you, whether it's Gavin or somebody else in the upcoming fight. The City of Champions welcomed you back, and
hell yeah.
we hope.
I appreciate it, man. Shout out to everyone in Tampa Bay, man. I love you guys, and let's go Rays. Let's get that World Series. It'll be an exciting time around here.
Let's see you with the belt as the Grand Marshal of the Gasparilla Parade one year coming up here. Sounds good.
Yes. That'd be amazing. Thanks, man. Awesome. I look forward to it.
Thanks, Billy.
All right, bye-bye.